there's going to be a housing price correction. And I think that's going to start to happen in the 2030s. I think we might start transitioning in the later part of this decade, but there's going to be a pricing correction. There has to be.
Interesting.
I don't see wage rates going up to catch up with where the trend can be for housing appreciation.
Where do you see robotics? Do you see us in 10 years on a residential home?
We're not building houses in a manufacturing facility under controlled conditions. And again, in the Midwest, we have
totally uncontrolled conditions.
we have 95, 100-degree days in July, and we have -5, -10 in January. Builders would have to wait an extremely long time to get a blower door test without us investing resources into some kind of apprenticeship that promotes more energy raters. So how can we develop them a little bit more ahead of the code and make sure that they're prepared and ready to go when we move into a code that requires a blower door? Otherwise, our customers are going to be sitting on finished homes that they can't get into because we can't get occupancy, because we can't get that last piece done.
Hello, my name's Paul Seitz. I'm with R&R Insurance Services in Waukesha, Wisconsin. I'm a business development consultant there. Welcome to another edition of Land Development Focus. Today we're going to deviate from our normal format. We usually talk to Wisconsin-based land developers. Today we're going to talk to one of the most prolific builders in the state of Wisconsin over the last 20 years. And that would be Tim O'Brien. Welcome, Tim. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for coming out and the opportunity for me to be a part of your podcast.
Great to have you. You know, Tim, I think a lot of people are always interested in how did you start such a successful company? And I think that's well over 20 years ago now?
Yeah, it's nearly 20 years. So we'll actually be 19 years this June. So we started in June of 2007 when I was kind of given the opportunity to find something different to do as the market was kind of trending down, and there was some signs of this housing foreclosure market coming. And so I had an opportunity to connect with Matt and Mark Newman, where at that point they had a number of finished lots on the ground and needed some support in building that out all across kind of southeastern Wisconsin down into Racine and Kenosha, as well as obviously the metro Milwaukee area. And so it was an opportunity for us to go into business together at that time, and it was exciting. At the same time, a lot of anxiety and nervousness going in right as you were seeing more as permits are starting to really start to dwindle.
Quite a time to start a home building
Quite a time,
business.
but at the time we looked at it, as more out of necessity to move through some of those finished lots. But I really look back at it and say it was a great time to start a business because there were no, there were no hangovers from the boom of building in 2004, 5, and 6. We didn't have, a lot. We hardly had any overhead. We didn't, and it was just me and my sister at that point, and then Matt and his dad, Mark, and when we didn't have a lot of legacy type business that was going to weigh us down going into a softer housing economic point in time. So we were able, and we were fresh, we were new. And I think that also helped with some of the consumers looking for something different versus the traditional way of home building had been in the 4, 5, and 6. And we really focused on something that myself and Matt and Mark both believed in, is building green, making it more of the mainstream way of building a home, building sustainability energy efficiency and focus like that based on what could be more of a mainstream building model rather than a niche model. And so we really just went with that, and we said, so every home that we built is going to have a third-party energy certification and a third-party green certification. And it really started to resonate with a lot of our consumers and with the market and manufacturers as well, because manufacturers were losing market share or really just losing capacity, losing revenue, and so they wanted to find some niche that they could grab onto. So we were getting a lot of calls and opportunities to do some neat and interesting kind of innovative things with manufacturers. So it really was a good time for us. And we also had the ability to capture some great talent that was at that point being released from other industries and other builders.
A lot of turnover in 08,
right,
09.
Oh yeah, because you know, they had to cut overhead, and that's one of the reasons why we were able to get into Madison so quickly, is we got a really good leader out of one of the Madison home building operations.
How long have you been active in Madison?
So we went into Madison in essentially January 1st of 2012, and we identified a person probably fall of 2011 that could help us get it started up. We had always planned on going to Madison at some point. We thought it would be later, but this opportunity from a leader that's in the market, that knew the market, came to us, and we said, okay, we're going to accelerate that time frame up.
And I've got to think in Madison, the energy efficiency, qualities that your homes have plays even better in Madison than Milwaukee is. Do you see that?
It does, yes, and I think for different reasons. There's very different kind of shades of green. From a light green to
right
a dark
before
green.
St. Patrick's Day.
Right, from a light green to a dark green. And so, and also too, the buyers have certain drivers for why they're interested in a green home. So like I say, like Milwaukee is more of an economic green market where they really want to see, hey, I'm willing to pay more if I could see some kind of more of a financial return.
Yeah.
Right. So
lower expenses.
Lower expenses, right? Lower energy costs, lower maintenance, things like that, right? So that's more of the driver, and then there's still a peace of mind component that comes with it. But the driver starts economic. In Madison, there's a little bit more. There's still an economic component, but there's other heavier pieces like sustainability, and there's also kind of a fashionably green part of it too, in the Madison demographic. So those are the kind of three mixes more in Madison than they are here. But yes, the play of sustainability is greater in Madison than most of them.
Those are very fine distinctions. You obviously know your market very well. This year, Tim, I understand you are building the so-called St. Jude home.
Yes.
In the Builders Association Parade Homes.
Yeah. At
Schneider Farms in Oconomowoc.
Yeah.
So the St. Jude home, tell us just what this is about.
So this will be the second year, I believe, that through the Builders Association, who is supporting this project, or building the St. Jude home. And the St. Jude home, it's really focused on the proceeds. There's not necessarily a person associated with St. Jude that moves into the home, but it's really just a proceeds that come out of the home through donations of our trade partners, manufacturers, and obviously commitments we make into the process, that those proceeds then go to help fund not only research at St. Jude's, which is there's just one facility in the Tennessee area, I believe it's Memphis, Tennessee, but it also supports housing, built housing on that campus for the families of the patients who sometimes have to spend not only months, but maybe close to a year for part of the cutting edge, innovative cancer research that they do and the programs that they bring to help support some of these children who can't get that support locally. So it requires a lot of financial commitment to move a family there, and these homes help support some of that financial commitment.
So somewhere at the Builders Association, I heard last year's home, it approached $1 million.
Yeah, I believe it was over $1 million.
To St. Jude's.
Yeah, $1 million as the net proceeds to St. Jude's. Yeah,
I mean,
that's fantastic.
That's quite a big number for such a wonderful cause.
That's one of the things the parade homes are typically up there in price anyway, so that helps support, a bigger contribution to their mission.
Maybe some year we'll have a parade of homes that's focused on affordable housing, but it has yet to get here. So we've mentioned the Builders Association already a couple of times, the Metropolitan Builders Association. You were president of that group in 2010. Obviously the sponsors of the parade of homes. How has that benefited you in the context of, starting this company at a very difficult economic time? How has it assisted you, saved you time and energy in terms of growing your business?
So I got active in the Home Builders Association, Metropolitan Builders Association, around 2000. And so in my former place of employment, I was pretty active as already, and that's kind of when I started to get on the leadership ladder to be president, like you mentioned, in 2010. But how it supported me, just in general, just not only professional development, but the ability to connect with other industry professionals, the networking, the ability to create some other relationships with other developers. At that point in time, the company I'd worked for is really just focused on buying finished lots, wanted nothing to do with development. So being able to have that opportunity to make those connections and make connections with some of our great trade partners and some of our associates, some of our subcontractors, suppliers, to be able to connect with them, and then other builders. But also too, on the leadership side, during 2010 was a very tough time for the Metropolitan Builders Association. 2009 into 2010 and coming out of 2011, there were some financial challenges there for the home builders.
Because all the members were facing that.
And membership was dropping, and so was sponsorship. So, there was a big challenge there, and what I learned, what I really appreciated was, even in the room, sitting in the room with a bunch of my competitors, we all got together and collaborated and worked together to find ways to make this mission of the MBA continue to work, to not be in a position that at that time that we had this beautiful building, and so there's conversations, do we need to get out of it, and we found ways to work through it. But it was all from a collaboration of the members that were in leadership at that time, and it was just such a wonderful experience. I was glad to be such a part of it, but it also was a growth opportunity for me to lead through those tough times, not only for the Metropolitan Builders Association, but still had to do that for my own business, as well as the other people in the room had to do that for their business. But what also helped me start Tim O'Brien Homes was the relationships that I had through the MBA. At that time, Matt Maroney was the executive officer, and I was on the leadership track to be president when I started transitioning out of working for someone else to working for myself with two other partners. And so Matt was great in helping support that. Other members of the association were wonderful in supporting that. I remember a number of them coming to me to try to see what they could do to be a part of it or help support the initial startup of the operation.
Most industries have such a nonprofit group to promote the industry. And when you look at the Metropolitan Builders Association, it's so integral to everybody's existence, your home. And it seems to work almost best in that context. It's very focused, the mission's very focused, provide affordable, energy efficient, new housing, to our entire community. Energy efficiency, let's talk about that a minute. You're a recognized expert, I would say, on the Federal Energy Code. And, this is a code, the federal government publishes it every 3 years, and then each state decides whether or not to use it. And I know you've been involved in representing the industry in our state when it comes to the future of the Federal Energy Code. Where are we now in Wisconsin on that point?
So in Wisconsin, we've been on the 2009 called IECC, so International Energy Conservation Code. We've been on the 2009 code for a little bit more than 10 years, I want to say, probably close to 12 years. And as of, and this is data that I have from last fall, as of last fall of 25, we were one, if not two states that were still remaining on 2009. Nobody was on 6, and most everybody at that time were in 15 or 18 and getting ready to move up one more code cycle. So like you said, Paul, it's every 3 years. So it's 2009, then 12, 15, 18, 21, and then 24 came out last fall. Going from 2009, moving on up into the more restrictive codes going forward, which I believe we need to do, but there is a position of leapfrogging almost 10 years, 12 years worth of codes to get to the latest, which I'm not a proponent of. I believe that we should step in and slowly start closing the gap between where we're at 2009 and where 2024 is. But we've done some analysis of the cost benefits for each one of those code periods. And 2012 gives a good return to the customer. 2015, not so much. But then you start to step into 18 and it starts to kind of come back a little bit. So I believe we should step into each one of those codes, maybe skipping 15 because there's not much value there. There is more expense there. 18 drops the expense down a little bit. But the bigger part of it is once you get to 15 and above, every home requires a blower door test before occupancy can be given. And our challenge today in the market that we're in, there's not a lot of builders. There's probably, I'm going to guess, around a third of the builders are doing some kind of energy performance testing that requires a blower door or has the option to bring a blower door in. So even with that group, we're stretched already with them at capacity. We find sometimes with our energy raters that they can't get to a house as quickly as we need them to get to already. If we make that a requirement for the other 2/3 of the builders in the state, we need to start working on ramping up that part of the skilled trade. There has to be some movement within DSPS or within the state to help support programs that allow those individuals to be able to secure blower doors, to be able to educate more energy raters, because right now that would be the challenge of moving from 2015 beyond, is that builders would have to wait an extremely long time to get a blower door test without us investing resources into some kind of apprenticeship that promotes more energy raters. It's a low barrier to entry, but there's still a barrier because you've got to buy equipment. And you also have to have some kind of understanding that you're going to have some mass. So once you move there, you're going to have that mass. You're going to have the capacity that will be there for more energy raters to get in, but it's going to take time to develop them. So how can we develop them a little bit more ahead of the code and make sure that they're prepared and ready to go when we move into a code that requires a blower door? Otherwise, our customers are going to be sitting on finished homes that they can't get into because we can't get occupancy, because we can't get that last piece done.
For our viewers, that the blower door test, as the name implies,
yes,
they seal the house, as I understand it, and put a device over the door.
Yeah, over the front door.
Front door, and then bring it to a certain pressure, if you will.
What they do is they depressurize the house and basically force it to leak. Okay, so what we do is we suck all the air out of the home, and then based on what the pressure is on the exterior of the home and the pressure is on the interior of the home, through a calculation they can determine what is the rate of air change per hour, right? And so that's the metric that they use to determine whether it falls inside the code or outside of the code.
Quite a litmus test for the tightness of the home.
Right.
I mean, you're testing the physical attributes that, relative to leaks.
Yep, and under extreme conditions, because no home is going to leak on all 4 walls in the attic and the basement at one time, but air does move through the home.
Yeah, very interesting. I think you've heard of the Badger Institute. It's a nonprofit group in Wisconsin focused on housing and particularly affordable housing. And they did a very extensive research study last year in Wisconsin on our new home industry. And for the first time, the cost of a new home in Wisconsin, lot and home package, if you will, it went over $500,000.
And that's for new homes.
For new homes only. And, you know, from your perspective, Tim, what are the obstacles to affordable housing? I mean, $500,000 is, I think, out of reach for a fair-sized percentage of our potential home buyers, right?
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, so many municipalities are focused on this. It's a political issue, you know, but what are the biggest barriers that perhaps we could manage to a better environment to build more affordable homes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of different variables in there, right? And some of them we don't control, such as you know, where the economy is going to some extent, to where interest rates are at. We as builders, there's things that are outside of our control. Things that can be inside of our control start first with kind of the municipality. And so in other parts of the country, even in other parts of the state, municipalities allow a higher density. And really the cost of a lot is really in the road. It's that front footage from the front corner on the right to the front corner on the left. That's where the cost of that lot is. It's not necessarily in the size of the lot, it's in the road width, right? So getting, there's a lot of diversity in terms of what municipalities, even neighboring municipalities, require for their infrastructure work that accelerates the price or the cost to get in. The entitlement process can be costly for a developer as well. So all of those, depending on how much time it takes to bring that raw piece of dirt to finished lots that then can be sold to builders or sold to consumers, that cycle time and the ownership of that land, that costs money, right? So if that entitlement process is strung out, or there's a lot of obstacles and a lot of redesign that sometimes happens because there's uncertainty of really sometimes within the municipality of what they really want. And then density is another big component of it. So if we can narrow down those lots and we can have reasonable specification requirements for the streets, which currently, again, the developers all pay for and then turn over to the city free of charge, that until we can get those lots narrow, and in some extent, Paul, until we can get some municipalities, which a few of them, especially those more on the periphery of the A markets, are contributing dollars towards infrastructure costs because they need more affordability in their community to help support the manufacturers and the industrial the industrial company relationships that they have that need the workers. That because some of those workers that they need, that the rates that they're paying, need affordable housing, or they're traveling long distances to get there. And it only takes one massive snowstorm for one person to decide, I got to find something more local to where I live. So municipalities on the fringe are starting to recognize the importance of contributing towards some infrastructure costs to lower that housing cost. The other part of it, once you get past the development side, is just there's a labor capacity still issue for us, right? And so, you know, the Great Recession started that decrease in labor capacity. COVID, then when things started to pick back up, labor rates went up quite a bit. And that's going to be hard for us to, as an industry, to correct that, if you will. And I don't know if there needs to be a correction, but you know, commodities come and go, but labor rates are pretty sticky. So once those go up and you need that capacity and you have to pay more to get people to do the work, that's hard to make that change. But you know, commodity pricing is in there. I really believe that as housing appreciation has exceeded wage growth for so long, that there's going to be a housing price correction. And I think that's going to start to happen in the 2030s. I think we might start transitioning the later part of this decade, but there's going to be a pricing correction. There has to be.
Interesting.
I don't see wage rates going up to catch up with where the trend can be for housing appreciation. So in order for us to really focus on affordability, we have to work with municipalities to get those narrower lots and some kind of level of state or federal contribution or county contribution to help the infrastructure. Because at the end of the day, the municipality owns those streets, and the tax base that they're going to get out of it is good.
It's a very good point. I mean, all the infrastructure that developers are required or to meet the market, there, which we're talking, for a single family subdivision, we're talking millions and millions of dollars, ends up being owned by our government, the municipality. And
they take it over.
I think, your typical citizen loses sight of that. I mean, these are significant costs, and the only benefit the developer really gets is the ability to sell the lots that the infrastructure services, I guess. As you know, in Orlando over the last few days has been the National Association of Home Builders Convention. And I've heard through social media a lot of buzz about robotics actually contributing to job site efficiencies. And I've also read some conflicting views of that. A craftsman on a job in the field is constantly making decisions of quality, decisions of utility that are so-called in the field. And it seems as if maybe in our future they're developing actual robotics that may be that sophisticated to build what we're able to build with humans today. Where do you see robotics? Do you see us in 10 years on a residential home?
Well, there's a company out there right now out of London, in England, that's working to come more of it into the U.S. market, and they do have some product in the market, which is kind of a robotic little mini panel plant, where a robot is building panels for the house. So not floor decks, but wall panels, but it's on site versus being built off site and shipped. So there is some kind of prototype automation, if you will, that's coming out there. I think the challenge for our industry, and it's almost like every decade when we come up against labor constraints, labor capacity, where we think that automation or panels are going to be the solution. And as long as I've been in the business, every decade that comes up, and then every decade that goes away.
But it always does capture a certain small percentage of the new home market.
It does. But most of where that has to happen, in my opinion, is you got to have scale to get that out there. Our manufacturing plant moves every 4 to 6 months, right?
Right.
And
it goes where it's got to go.
It goes where it's got to go. I mean, we're not building houses in a manufacturing facility under controlled conditions. And again, in the Midwest, we have
totally uncontrolled conditions.
we have 95, 100-degree days in July, and we have -5, -10 in January. So the varying conditions are quite a bit. And what that does to the equipment in the field, that could be tough. And so I think there's a place for it, especially in high velocity, high volume area. They're doing that with the 3D printing of concrete. They have a community down in Austin, Texas. But a lot of that is really just start here and you move uniformly down the street with a few plans that are easily replicatable by the machine. But it's a huge setup and it's a huge takedown. But if you have the volume, there's some argument that it makes sense. But I think in our market, where we don't have that mass production kind of development, it may be hard to scale. But in other parts of the country, I think you'll start to see it where there's, especially when we start to get more into workforce housing, which is going to be more consistent, more repeatable. I think that there's a play for that because you reduce the amount of variability. We're still, every home that's built here, we've never built the same home twice. And I don't know of many builders in our market really that truly built the same home twice. And I'm talking, even if you flip the garage hand to the other side, it's a different plan.
Yeah.
So, but in a workforce housing type thing or something that's repeatable, I think there's a lot of sense for that.
To finish up, Tim, how do you see your company and the Wisconsin housing market in 2026? Are we coming into perhaps one of our best markets?
Well, I don't, COVID for home builders, once the second half of 2020, where we started to see a lot of people realize that, my gosh, I really don't like being in my house all day, and I need to make some changes without, some significant remodeling. We saw a tremendous amount of starts, right? And it's in the data. 2021 was a great year. 2022 was, I think, probably the record year for starts. In both Milwaukee and Madison. We're starting to see that settle back down to normal. I think this could be more of a normal starts year for the major markets in Wisconsin. I think housing inventory is still an issue. That's why affordability is an issue. But I think this should be barring any major rate drops, this should be a pretty normal year. I think 27 might be a little softer, and then they say 28 should come back as well. But I think, between 26, 27, and 28, average those three together, I think they'll be fairly normal for home building.
Well, that sounds like guarded optimism, and we'll see what the future holds. I really appreciate you joining us today. You are a wealth of information. So again, thank you, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Land Development